Now, I note that the Liberal pollster Frank Graves of the Liberal polling firm Ecos didn't seem to ask any non-belligerent options, like, would you think Canada should mediate peace talks, which other countries like Belarus and Turkey have done. I think Israel is trying to do that. So that would be a constructive thing that's not violent. That's often how wars are ended, with peace talks. That wasn't an option that Frank Graves to put to people. There was no humanitarian aid option, or even revving up our own oil sands to displace Russian oil, not just their exports to Canada, but what if Canada exported oil and gas to the world? Our imports from Russia are modest, but if we could relieve Europe, especially Germany, from reliance on Russia, that would be something we could really do to help. It was a carefully selected list of options, all of which involved hostility towards Russia, much of which was fantastical or unrealistic, like the jets part, and most of which Trudeau himself would never do in any event, or would be pointless. I mean, sure, we have sanctions on lots of Russian oligarchs. I'm just not sure that any Russian oligarchs have ever put money in the Royal Bank or Scotia Bank or sailed their mega yachts up the St. Lawrence River. I think it's a combination of wishful thinking and virtue signaling and demonizing an enemy who, by the way, may in fact be a demon. But I just want to point out that what the options had in common here, they were all aggressive. Whereas the one thing the anti-vaxxers agreed on is don't fight. They're not saying they're pro-Putin. They're just saying don't do all those hostile things, especially the ones that might start World War III, because it's not our fight. That's not pro-Putin. That's isolationist, you could call it. By the way, I wonder what those same vaxxers and anti-vaxxers would say about sanctions against Chinese oligarchs for a number of reasons, from their crimes against humanity to their industrial espionage to taking Canadians hostage to their role in the virus labs in Wuhan to their concentration camps for Uyghurs. Just curious. Graves in the Star says these unvaxxed people can't be correct. He says they can't have a legitimate point of view. He explains these answers by saying they're just dumb. Let me quote. The study concludes the results point to the highly corrosive influences of disinformation. This is definitely a new and bluntly insidious force that is contributing to polarization and disinformation and poor decision-making, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Things are getting worse, said Graves. I don't think this is because those people had an ingrained sympathy to the Russians. They're reading this online. They're consuming this from the same sources that were giving them the anti-vax stuff. Got it. So anyone who disagrees with the Toronto Star is just stupid. That's the only option, disinformation. We're all too easily tricked. Pfizer is pitching the fourth dose of a vaccine that doesn't really vaccinate, but you're still calling the skeptics the kooky ones? All right. The entire province of Quebec, may I remind you, was put under a lengthy prison-style curfew for health reasons. The media and the government promoted it, total cheerleading, but it recently emerged that there was no medical basis for a curfew, never has been in the history of mankind. All the health experts who were asked said there was no justification. They told the public health officer this, told him they couldn't back up his political curfew with any medical reasons, but they launched it anyways. And you're saying the skeptics were the misinformed ones? You know, yesterday we played a short, fun clip from me 10 years ago at an eco-protest. I don't know if you saw that, where the protesters had no clue about anything. They were just told to show up, so they did, and they were handed their placards to carry. They probably didn't even read it, no clue. That one gal who was there specifically to protest me, but when I came up to her, she didn't recognize me when I spoke with her, that rent-a-mob professional protesters do what they're told. That is truly disinformation. They don't know what they're doing. But you go to any anti-vaccine mandate rally in this country, there's no one like that. You ask someone, why are you here? They will talk your ear off for an hour. They've read more studies, watched more videos, listened to different sources, read more journalism than anyone. But hey, if it makes you feel better to call them uninformed and stupid. Well, fill your boots. You're the Toronto Star. Unvaccinated Canadians are also more likely to have a profound distrust of government, science, and professional health experts, Graves said, and are more likely to support the protest convoy that occupied Ottawa for nearly a month. Now I think that's true. Distrust of government. Is there any institution that has failed more in the past 2 years than government? Well, the media, of course, but in Canada, the media are government funded. Science? Well, sure, science being the word that politicians have stolen to apply to their politics. Science is some sort of shield against asking questions. Science is about questions. It comes from the Greek word to know, to investigate, to the scientific process, experimenting. There's no end in science, by the way. There's no unquestionable thing in science. If you can't question it, it's not science anymore. It's something else. I don't know, politics, ideology, faith, whatever, superstition. Anthony Fauci is the worst. He actually says that criticizing him is tantamount to criticizing science itself, and that's so dangerous, so stop doing it.
I mean, anybody who's looking at this carefully realizes that there's a distinct anti-science flavor to this. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, well, people could recognize there's a person there, so it's easy to criticize. But they're really criticizing science because I represent science. That's dangerous. To me, that's more dangerous than the slings and the arrows that get thrown at me. And if you damage science, you are doing something very detrimental to society long after I leave.
Imagine saying you represent science. You're its only interpreter on earth. That right there is anti-scientific, unscientific. But also imagine saying that the scientific consensus cannot withstand criticism. I'll let the ghost of Galileo know that. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.